Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the 30 Days to Happiness podcast. Today we're talking about my favorite subject, the something that I could talk about all day long, and that's happiness, the actual formula for happiness. Now, in my book 30 Days to Happiness, I do talk about the 30 habits that reconstruct your subconscious mind. And what I mean by that is it rewires your thought patterns, right? Habits are results of your behaviors, right? And behaviors can change from your environment. And that can actually then determine how you feel, how you want to act, and how you physically choose to change your habits moving forward. So today I'm going to give you a very, kind of simple framework to actually become happier and understand what happiness really means. I think it's honestly talked about so much. There are so many researchers, professors, people with PhDs, amazing people that have gone through the hardest of hardest times and have come out of it with a positive attitude. And in positive psychology, they talk a lot about bouncing back from your lowest points, but it seems that a lot of people on this earth really struggle to actually do that because they're so attached to the feelings that they have and the identity of what happened to them. And therefore, when they say happiness is a choice, they don't actually believe that. They say, oh, but this happened to me. When I was a teenager, this happened to me, and how could I ever truly be happy? I could say the same thing. I had a crazy upbringing where, I was manipulated, and then I was also very depressed, and I was a typical high achiever where I wanted a specific goal and it didn't happen. So I became depressed. And I'm speaking a lot to my high achievers today because I can really relate to you. And then I lost my daughter a few months ago. My daughter passed away at 20 weeks, and it was the hardest thing I've ever gone through. Not just physically, it was the worst pain I've ever felt because it was like 10x labor pains. But losing her, I felt like I was losing a part of myself because she was like, I was physically creating her. And I birthed her, and she was a child of mine. And I had a choice then and there to be depressed, be sad, and continue living with the mindset that life is just hates me. I could have said that a lot. I could have been in victim mentality, but because I actually chose to rise above and beyond my circumstances, I have used this experience as a driver and a motivation to leave a legacy and actually help people and understand that victim mentality doesn't get you anywhere. Let's just be honest. Victim mentality keeps you stuck. It's the enemy's way of lying to you, saying you deserve to feel this way. Negative emotions, you feel like you just can't shift. I personally have had intrusive thoughts a lot, all throughout my life. But the one thing that has stopped me from actually going through with absolutely anything or feeling a certain way is actually being in control of my thoughts and taking action. If you look at your thoughts as, just everywhere, everywhere all at once, you can think so many things. And I can't remember the exact amount of thoughts we have a day, but it's a lot. I know we make, I think it's like 35,000 decisions or something a day. But how many thoughts do we have? We have a lot of thoughts. So when I am feeling down or my negativity is spiraling or I have intrusive thoughts, the first thing I ever do is I will look at the emotion or the thought and acknowledge it. Okay, let's just say it's guilt. Okay, that's a big one. A lot of people deal with guilt these days, or every day. But it might be different for you. It might be hate. It might be jealousy. It might be self-worth, like a lack of self-worth and confidence in yourself. Honestly, it might just be anxiety from what someone said to you. The thing is, now that we've acknowledged it, we can then go to step 2, which is ask ourselves, is this real? And do we want to continue feeling these thoughts? Now, when you take a step back from a traumatic event, a situation, or even just a thought or a feeling that just feels yuck and gross, you have a choice. You have a choice to change your thought process. And just like when you go to the gym and you train those muscles, we need to learn to actually train ourselves to think in a different way. Because in this crazy world, we have been brainwashed by social media, the news, our parents. We have been prone to think a certain way because of what we've gone through. Now, to change your reality, you must change your personality. To change your personality, you must change your behavior. Behaviors are changed if you change your environment. That is the first thing you need to do. Okay, so you ask yourself, okay, well, I feel guilty. Okay, why do I feel guilty? Oh, because of this. Is this true? Okay, if it is true, then is there anything we can do to fix it? That's the third question. The next question you ask yourself, if it's not true, how can I choose to let it go? That's one of the habits in my book in 30 Days to Happiness is actually completely letting go. Now, there's a difference between not forgiving and letting go and actually choosing to let go. And then forgiveness comes as a prerequisite from it. But when you ask yourself, is this real? And it's not, how can you choose to let it go? Oh, but I can't let it go. It's in my thoughts all day, every day. I totally get it. I had a similar situation a few weeks ago. I just could not get the thought out of my brain of what someone said to me online, which was quite nasty. So, one, give yourself time, because I don't even think about it anymore. Give yourself time, give yourself healing. Just know that time will help. How do you replace those thoughts? Now, this is when we come to the center of what happiness truly actually means, and that is accountability. Accountability, no one wants to do. It's the training of your new thought patterns and actually choosing a different thought. As if your thoughts are all over the place, you then get to choose what thought you actually want to replace that negative thought with once you've gone through those 3 questions. If you choose to let it go or actually do something about it, it'll get easier and easier, but on average, it takes about 90 seconds for you to then change your thought patterns and move on to something else. But if you do not take initiative and actually bring on a new thought, which then creates a new emotion, then creates a new feeling and a behavior and action that you want to create, then you're going to keep spiraling and spiraling and spiraling until you hit rock bottom. Or maybe you've already hit rock bottom. But that's okay. If you think that life is not happening for you and you're a victim of this world, just remember who the real enemy is. Just remember that Satan is here to destroy everything in your life if you believe in a higher power. Imagine going another 50 years hanging on to that one event because you chose to not pursue a happier life. Now, let's get a little bit more positive here because this is pretty deep. So when I was a teenager, not even a teenager, let's go even further back, right? I grew up with 2 entrepreneurial parents. They were very hardworking. They were always on the go, okay? Which meant sometimes they weren't emotionally there for me, and that's okay. They've admitted to that. But I became just like them. I was working every weekend. I was saving as much as I can, like from as early as I can remember, probably from like 8, 10, 12 years old. I was giving swimming lessons. My mum had a swim school back then. I was babysitting. I was giving horse riding lessons. I was just doing everything you could possibly can. But I also had the entrepreneurial mindset that I wanted to own a cafe and I'm going to turn this house into a cafe and, I'm going to be a beautician. Had all these cool little hobbies and I loved it. And I remember the very first time I wanted to pursue something so badly was I wanted to buy a miniature horse. And I think it's because we went to a horse show and they were so cute. And I figured out after reading Horse Deals, which is like, a magazine, which is actually not big anymore because it's all online, but it used to be a really thick magazine of all horses around Australia that you could buy. And I would flip through Horse Deals and I would have a look and see all the miniature horses and how much they cost. Okay, well, they cost about $500. So I worked backwards. This is like, I think I was actually 10 years old. I worked backwards. Okay, well, how can I make $500? That's X amount of babysitting. That's X amount of this, X amount of that. And because I was always striving for something, and then I wanted to go to the Olympics for show jumping, and then I wanted to become an actor, I was always striving because I always thought that if I reached a certain destination, I would be happy. And ultimately, that's just not how life works. That is not how happiness works. Happiness is a survival mechanism because with happiness, there has to be a high and there has to be a low. Right? There's no in between because after you are happy, there's always a low that comes after it. And that's what happiness is. It's a survival mechanism. But with joy And true joy, peace, and purpose, those three things, in a sense of being present in the moment and with gratitude, that's kind of like the formula. But how the heck do we even get there? So because I was always striving as a teenager, I got depressed. And then my goal was to go to the Olympics for show jumping. And then we moved off acreage. And then my horse passed away. And then I had my whole life and my purpose ripped away from me. And a lot of people who were in that situation would think, oh, well, why don't you just get another horse or just do that, blah, blah, blah. Because I was 16 years old, I didn't really have many choices. Everything was stripped away from me and I had to choose a new way of being. I had to choose a new goal. So I set myself to start a business, right? I got so attached again to the outcome of building $1 million business that I lost track of what real happiness actually meant. I got so burnt out in 2019 that I literally couldn't walk for 4 weeks. My lower back still affects me to this day because I made the decision to pursue and keep going and not listen to my emotions. I got so burnt out that one of my discs in my back slipped and I couldn't walk. And ever since then, it still flares up when I get anxious. I always look for the signs in my body when I start getting anxious again, when I start getting burnt out. Generally, what happens with me is my lower back starts getting inflamed and I get a sty on this eye. Ask yourself, what are the signs before you get burnt out? And what are the signs of you as a high achiever, if you are, that you are pursuing something for happiness to get a result? Because what happens is there's a gap between your reality and your expectations. Now, I don't think there's anything too wrong with setting expectations too high, but what ends up happening is that we pursue something and we will not stop until we actually pursue it. Meaning that if we do not hit our goal, we become unhappy. Or if life, for example, changes drastically and you want to take control over everything, like me, start this year, I had everything lined up for my business. I was going to buy a new car and I was going to do this and this and this and this and this. And then my world absolutely fell apart when my daughter passed away. I said, I can't be in control anymore. And that was the first step for me to learn I could not be in control all the time. So ask yourself, what am I trying to control? Are you trying to control an outcome? Am I striving for only one thing? Because what happens is if you're striving for just that one thing, and you will know that if you reach that, you will not become any more happier than you are right now because you're reaching a certain expectation. This happens. This is why so many high achievers around the world are so unhappy and they have the highest suicidal rate. Because once they reach the destination they thought was going to make them happy, they fall apart because there's nothing to strive for anymore. Now, I'm asking you today, sit down with yourself, take control of those thoughts, right? And analyze the goals that you have and ask yourself, do I have the expectation that if once I reach this goal, I'm going to be happy? If yes, maybe you need to pick a different goal or set up a new expectation. I'll give you an example. I was hustling so hard to build our new house. Hustle, hustle, hustle. That was my number one goal. I realized was how unhappy I was because I was striving for that one goal, which meant I needed to make more money, which meant I needed to work harder, which means I needed to hire more people. So I shifted it. How can I enjoy every single day? Because right now I'm living the life that I manifested years ago. Okay? I talked about it out loud. I pictured myself sitting on my deck writing my next book. What am I doing? It's amazing what visualization can do for you. And I think we talked about this in the last podcast episode. So if you're a high achiever who has lots of expectations, but you have the I'll be happy when vocabulary or thought process, find a new expectation. Okay? What can we set some new expectations towards? Mine was, okay, well, we're not going to be able to build our dream massive house in the next 12 months. It's just not reality. So I said, okay, next 5 years. Okay? Takes the pressure off. And I said, okay, with my business, I don't really want to be doing this anymore, but I want to be doing this. Okay? And we'll just see what happens. Take the pressure off. I know a lot of circumstances, you may be the breadwinner of the family and you need to make money. Okay? But what are you controlling that if you're so scared to let go of, you're going to absolutely lose it? Meaning that if you don't feel in control, you don't feel happy. And that's actually a reality in a lot of people's lives. That happened to me and still it does to this day because that's how I was brought up. But just know that there are not many things in this world that you can actually control. You can control your thoughts and change them with that 7-second rule we talked about. Give yourself, it gets easier 7 seconds. I said 90 seconds at the start, but give yourself 90 seconds to change that thought after asking those 3 questions. And then move further. I ask you to choose a different thought, which will create a new feeling, a new behavior, change your environment. Get out of the environment you're in. If you're laying on the couch in your pajamas and you've got all these negative thoughts, probably best to get in the shower, get changed. If you feel better doing your hair and makeup, do it. Go out, go to a cafe, go for a walk on the beach, change your environment. I can guarantee your thoughts will change automatically because it's your environment that determines how you feel and your behaviors. So, formula. Again, you might not like what I'm saying because you don't like accountability. That's one of my core values and what happiness actually stems from. Happiness is not, once I win the lotto, you just can't not be happy. Yes, money buys freedom, not happiness. Because with happiness, like I said, there has to be a height and there's usually a low. Real joy and real peace is actually learning to enjoy everyday life, which is really hard for high achievers. I'll be totally honest. It took me a very long time to enjoy and be present in the moment. So I encourage you today, spend 5 minutes doing some breathing. This is what I did yesterday. 5 seconds in, hold for 5 seconds, 5 seconds out. Do that for 5 to 10 minutes. Your nervous system will relax. You'll be able to think more clearly. Then I want you to visualize what real happiness actually means to you. If you start visualizing that end result, think, okay, well, how am I going to be happy once I reach that end result? And if there is no more further of happiness or you wanting more, the need for wanting is not bad, but when you're wanting because you're going to be happy, if you have this or whatever it is that you want, then you need to set some new expectations. Ask yourself, why can't I be happy right now? What is stopping me from being happy right now? Are you blaming the rest of the world that you can't control? You can't control what's going on in the world. And sometimes we can't always control what goes on in our daily lives, right? My daughter passing away is a perfect example. But you do have control over what you do with those thoughts in your head. And I'll be honest, it's really tough. I've been there. It's really tough to change your thoughts. But I encourage you today to change those thoughts. Use those 3 questions. Take responsibility for those thoughts. And if you don't want to take responsibility, then you're just going to stay unhappy forever. And that's the reality. You get to choose if you want to live in victim mentality or victim mentality. What do you want to be? Remember who the real enemy is, because one day when you take all the power of the enemy and the enemy is trying to kill you and steal you and destroy all your joy, you remind yourself that you have more power than you think. So here are a few things for my believers out there. If you really want to learn how to take all the power of the enemy and your thoughts, here are 3 things I say every single day. The first thing is, today is going to be a great day, and I'm going to rejoice and be glad in it. The second thing I say is, I choose to take all the power of the enemy. Doesn't matter if you're a Christian or not a Christian. This is a great affirmation, a prayer, declaration, that's what it is, to say, I'm going to take control of my life today, right? And I do not allow anything external to affect me. And then the third is, no war or weapon against me shall prosper, right? They are 3 powerful things that you can say to make sure the enemy doesn't come near you and steal your joy, right? Which is ultimately what we're striving for here. We're not striving for just your daily happiness. I just use the word happiness because it sounds greater than joy. Let's just be honest. So anyway, this was pretty deep. This was a pretty crazy podcast. If you didn't like it, that's fine. Go listen to something that makes you happier. But if you do like it, make sure you like, subscribe, and share it with a friend or someone who really needs to hear this. Okay? You've got this. Learn to take control and you'll be happier. Have a great day.